Where was the permission to get them?
Mr. David Chino.
Get these two.
You might have to.
You want one of these? Take this one home? Take your baby.
Is it just better hold it?
Let her hold it.
My girl, that you really got.
You.
Is that nice? You're late, but you're never late. Better late than never. It's all about you now. Now it's all about you. Well, welcome about trying.
No.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot the name again. Mr. Live person. I think I would remember it.
So you're on them pretty high.
Yeah. And in the Beit. So I might have put it on the name there. Because at first I thought we were related to them.
Because of the traffic, so about an hour. But on the way home it takes like 40 minutes. It's not traffic on the street. Well, there's less roadworks going on.
I was excited today because I was on Facebook and I saw NTLI post and I saw comment on the page. I was like, hey, that guy's in Beit. Then I come in here and here he is in the flesh. Other people are getting real life people.
We're growing slowly.
Yeah. So you haven't got one of these? I'm trying to spread it around to see if it rubs off on people.
Hey, just click through there.
Yeah, it's cold. I'll get you a wipe first then.
Looking after you. Looks good, thank you.
They're so beautiful, aren't they? Oh.
Yeah, I think you're catching it now.
I always love it.
Yeah, tell your kids to hurry up.
I do.
Stress it.
I'm all for children marry young and happy. I can't believe it. I don't see any. First and best command, go forth and multiply. Fill the earth. Yeah, that's it. That's what it is. There's no other purpose.
I tell people though, you can't have them in your role. You can always make money, but you can't. Exactly. A lot of people, you have the house and the car and too late. You've got to have them young.
I'll have my normal bath. Thank you. Thank you very
Can I
much.
have, is that alright if I have a, like a short latte? Someone else?
You know, to rub.
I'll have it, there you go. Yeah. Is that one Opposite as you wake up. Just like, now, put it forward, your head, swallow it. No, the head, forward, like you're choking. You swallowed some milk. Some milk.
I ran out of time and didn't get enough questions done.
Yeah, you can't have them when you're old and beside your body. I know you won't, but yeah, the body takes its toll, you know. You know my daughter, you know my other son's wife said she had Michael at 21. She said, that was like nightclubbing every night. No sleep.
Similar.
Nightclubbing every night.
Lots of kids.
Well, you've got to have when you're young.
That's it for me. Too old. 60 questions, 60 better. 40
What was it? Abraham was 100.
How old, you tell me anybody is 100 nowadays. And the woman, oh, forget it. How old was she? 90. 90. Women don't make it to 90.
There's a lot of women that make it past the ages of the guys. So there's more women alive longer than men.
We know women that live in Canada.
Okay.
But having a baby is challenging. You tell me Mary would have a kid, you know. Or any but I can see how it
Sammy's giving me an all black, so.
but I can see how it's joy because, you know, as grandparent, I look at you sort of exactly. So even if she's looking at you. What you guys
Okay.
I got married to Mary when I was 39.
39, there's hope. Yeah, well, we have a questions. Start looking, eh? Where are you looking?
Or better yet, pray, and you will get the right Hebrew woman.
39. Yes, we've got other things to do. That's what I'm the stuff for you. And then the woman just looking at it right.
Do you know one thing that I've learned? Whether we like it or not, men have not been preconditioned to be up in men.
All right.
My friend neurological issues down. My friend, that's what he thinks. Whatever may put into his hand, but whatever may put in some, she makes him pass that. And see the other side of it. Not the physical. The physical goes away. It's like, not for a Hebrew woman. But there's always one that Abba will bring. Pray so that you will be in his hands. He can actually draw the person for you. And he will mold her and bring you together.
All right.
You've got nothing to lose. Everything to gain.
I had an MRI last Tuesday.
You'll get your fix for home. Okay. Brother Vaskin, can you lead us in prayer, please?
I'm not dancing next to Mary.
She's not
That's
silly.
she's over there.
Charlie.
She's not silly. She's over here.
All right. Who wants to lead us in prayer to start?
Okay.
Go for it.
Abba, thank you for bringing all of these beautiful people here, all these Hebrews, we get to spend this beautiful day that you've called us to call it a blessed
and welcomed and happy day. We thank you for everything that you have given us, and we thank you for Pat's, because through him you teach us so much. Father, we pray that you would prepare our hearts to be able to receive the message that you have for each one of us, because we are not, you haven't left us alone. Your hand is always ready to help us and to teach us, just as we try and teach our children. We thank you, Abba, for everything. In Yeshua's beautiful name, amen.
Amen.
I don't know if you're French.
All right.
Oh, there it is. Is that the men's group?
Nice safe trip home. All right. So Genesis 49:22 to 26. Somebody read it for us. We'll talk about the power of a blessing.
Joseph is an offshoot of the fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over a wall. And the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of the Archon. From there you shepherd the stone of Israel, from the El of your father who helps you, and by the El Shaddai who blesses you with Berekah of the heavens above, Berekah of the deep that lies beneath, Berekah of the breast and of the womb. The Berekah of the father have excelled the Berekah of your ancestors, up to the limit and the everlasting hills. They are on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers.
Amen. So this is the blessing of his father Jacob, just before he passed away. And this is the blessing to each of the sons, which are the patriarchs of the tribes of the kingdom of Israel. So there's 12 sons, and he goes one by one and gives them blessings. Why am I focusing on Joseph? Anybody can tell me? Why do you think I'm focusing on Joseph?
Because through Joseph we are able to have the tribe of Ephraim, and we are...
Ephraim and Manasseh, yeah? Yeah, Kelly?
He was married with a Egypt woman.
Yeah. That's enough.
Very good.
Yep. Kayla?
They already explained it.
Okay, so the same explanation.
Well, you received the blessing, yeah?
Receive the blessing.
He
Yep.
received the blessings through his life.
What's so important about the blessing of Joseph?
Because even till now, on Shabbat, the Hebrew people tend to use the blessing like they did back then.
May it be like Ephraim and Manasseh.
That's right.
The picture of Messiah. Yeah, the picture of Messiah. Yep. All good answers. Absolutely. We're gonna see there's a lot behind the blessing, and I mean this blessing was probably given to them 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Right, according to biblical chronology, about 4,500, 5,000 years ago, they received this blessing, and it's still carrying on today. So what's the importance of a father's blessing? You know, we've been talking about the power of the tongue, you know, the power of what's in your heart. We've been talking about the beatitudes or the blessings that Yeshua gave to his people. You know, I want to concentrate today about the blessing of Jacob, the blessing of the father to his son. And how did that affect history? It actually affected not just our history, but world history, right? Throughout the years. How did that blessing, that simple blessing that, you know, a few words from a man that was submitted unto God, and these words carried a tremendous weight for the rest of humanity. You know, sometimes we don't realize what the power of our words are, especially over our children. And I want us to realize that there is a power that goes on beyond our lives into our children, into their children, into their children's children, for generations to come. And the things you speak over your children are the things that they're going to carry. Now the reason I'm focusing on this verse is a personal one, very personal one. When my dad passed away, and I used to tell Chaz, it would have been nice to receive from him a blessing. Before he passed away, in the Hebrew sense, I'm the firstborn of their house. I wish I could have received this blessing from him. And so I was, just talking that out loud with my wife. And I got a text message from Mum last night or the night before, I can't remember exactly. And she was telling me, that for years the only prayer they ever prayed about me, or the prayer that they were constantly praying about me, was this Bible verse. And I said, why that specific Bible verse? And she said that God had spoken to them some way that I was going to be like Joseph. So when they found this blessing of Joseph, this is what they used to pray over me. So in a way, I received my blessing. And so that's why I'm focusing on this. It's a personal thing, but also I think it's important because it carries a lot. And I want to talk specifically about this whole movement that we're part of, what's going on with, the awakening that is going on. Whatever you want to call it, Hebrew roots, Christian roots, Messianic movement, the Netzarim, etc., etc. What is this thing? Where is this in Scripture? I mean, where are these crazy people, going back to the law of Moses? I mean, don't they know that the law brings you into bondage? And so Christ nailed it all to the cross. You don't need to worry about the law anymore, right? So what's this crazy thing that's going on, and where does it come from? And I submit to you early on now that it comes from the blessing. Alright, so let's look at it again just quickly. So verse 26 talks about the blessing itself. It says, the blessing of your father excels the blessing of my ancestors. So his blessing over Joseph was greater than the one he received from his own ancestors. And the bounty of the ancient hills, may they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince of his brothers. We know that Joseph, in a way, takes the firstborn right, and there's another verse that talks about the firstborn. And we've talked about the firstborn right, and the firstborn right is divided into two parts, right? What's the first part of the firstborn right? Of the right of the firstborn, or the law of the firstborn? Firstborn actually means first fruits. By the way. Or the best.
Would be the firstborn would be the.
So it's in two parts. Part 1, part 2.
isn't the first one for them to be a priest?
A
Or
priest? No,
be paid for?
all of Israel was a priesthood, yeah.
Yeah, but then.
The firstborn are mine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the priesthood, yeah, in a way. What's
The second?
the other part?
Double portion.
So double portion is the second part. Double inheritance or double portion.
The scepter?
Yeah. The scepter. Right. What does that mean? So we said the priesthood, scepter. What's the scepter?
SC.
Let's see.
Would that be like the blessing?
No. What's the scepter specific of?
It's a,
Doesn't it come down?
Who receives the scepter?
yeah, personal authority.
Who's the one that receives the scepter?
Kings or
The king, right? There's the kingship. What does that mean? In a practical sense, what does the firstborn take on?
Authority.
The authority, yep. Sorry, what was that?
Leadership.
The leadership, yep.
Responsibility.
The responsibilities. Alright, so the firstborn, if you went to a house and the father was missing, you wouldn't talk to the mother. Like today's day, you would talk to the firstborn. Right? So the firstborn would take the place of the father when the father was not present. When the father died, the firstborn would take the responsibility of the house,
Did
of
that
the
only,
clan.
did that only apply to sons though, not daughters?
Sons only, yeah. Except for one case, but we'll get that one later on. What did that have to do with double portion? Yeah. Alright, so the responsibility of the firstborn was to take on the father's house and to care for his siblings and his mom. Right? To do that, he will receive a double portion. Right? So let's say you had 4 children, you would divide the land into 5 parts. Right? The firstborn will get 2 parts. Yeah? And you think, well, that's unfair. Well, actually, the second part of that inheritance was for the firstborn to use that to provide for his siblings, for his brothers and sisters and mum. Right? So it wasn't just for him to eat it himself, but it was a means for him to have a little bit more so that he could take care of the family. Yeah. So in ancient times, the firstborn of the house was very important. The firstborn blessing that was given to the first fruit, not necessarily the firstborn, but the one that actually was the best fruit of the marriage. He would receive the double blessing and the authority of the house. Right. So, having said this, when we look at Jacob's line, we see the firstborn of Jacob was what? What was his name? Reuben. Yeah, we're all happy with Reuben? Yeah? Just testing you. Good
Correct
job.
weight?
Right, what happened with Reuben? Yeah,
He slept with his father's.
yeah, he took his father's concubine. Right? And he lost the firstborn right. Who was next in line? Simeon. What happened with Simeon?
They they took on the man of Dinah.
Shechem. Yeah. So Simeon went against his father's word, because Jacob had given his word to the men of Shechem on behalf of their sister Dinah, right? Because the prince of Shechem had taken Dinah for himself, and then they were gonna circumcise and become part of Israel, become one big nation, and Jacob was okay with that. He agreed to that. So, and then Simeon goes along with the next one in line, which is, who's the next one in line? Levi. So Simeon and Levi go and they mess it up. They go and kill all the people of Shechem, all the men of Shechem, while they're weakened by the circumcision, loss of blood and all that sort of stuff, infections. So it was a very cowardice thing. He went against their father's word, so they lose the firstborn right. Who gets the firstborn right? Who's the fourthborn? Judah. Yehudah. Right? So he gets the firstborn blessing. What happens is that Judah is not here, not there, and sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down. And Joseph gets sold. Right? Remember the whole story of Joseph? Well, it's actually Judah the one that sells him out. And because of that, I think God gives the firstborn right to Joseph. Right? And we'll see in another verse where God calls Joseph his firstborn. Right? So the firstborn right passes to Joseph. Now, what's interesting in this whole thing is that in the scripture it says that the scepter will never depart from Judah. Right? And the firstborn right, or the double portion, stays with Ephraim, which is Joseph's son. Right? And Ephraim means double portion, or the fruitfulness. Right? So the right of the firstborn gets divided into two. Now some people don't believe in two-house theology because they think that they're all together now in the land and everything that had to happen to bring them back together, it's all been done and dusted. And we're going to go through some of the verses to show you that it hasn't actually happened. There's a lot of things that actually haven't fulfilled in the prophecies. But all this begins from the blessing, right? From that one blessing that began it all. And so let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 4. We're going to look at a little bit of this two-house thing. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Everybody knows verse 2. I hope everybody knows verse 2.
Yeah, it's highlighted.
If you don't yet, highlight it. What does verse 2 say?
And do not add to the word which I command you, and do not take away from it, so as to guard the commands of Jehovah your Elohim, which I am commanding you.
Shall not add, not diminish from the Torah, from the word of Jehovah. But we're going to go a little bit further down, 27. I read 27 to 31.
And Jehovah shall scatter you among the peoples, and ye shall be left few in number among the Goyim, where Jehovah drives you. And there ye shall serve mighty ones, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But from there ye shall seek Jehovah your Elohim, whom ye shall find, and ye search for him with all your heart and with all your being. In your distress, when all these words shall come upon you in the latter days, then you shall return to Jehovah your Elohim, and shall obey his voice. For Jehovah your Elohim is a compassionate El. He does not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers which he swore to them.
Right, so the prophecy that you see here in Deuteronomy chapter 4 is that they are going to be scattered. What does that word mean? What does it mean to be scattered?
Spread across, spread out.
Spread out, right? Sent across the whole face of the world. Yeah, 18, 15 to 19. So this is to Israel, and we're going to learn that the term house of Israel, house of Joseph, house of Ephraim, they're all the same. And northern kingdom. I know a lot of this is not new to you, but it's good to go back through it. Someone can read the next verse, please?
Jehovah your Elohim shall rise up you a prophet like thee from the midst. From your brothers listen to him, according to all you asked of Jehovah your Elohim in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear against the voice of Jehovah my Elohim, nor let me see his great fire any more, lest I die.
Alright, so the prophecy tells us there will be a great prophet like unto Moses, and him we are to listen to, and God will deal with whoever doesn't listen to him, right? So part of the promise of being scattered is at some point when you have been scattered, right, I will send you a prophet. So once you have been scattered, I will send a prophet. Like Moses. Who was the prophet? Yeshua. What did he come to do? To do away with the law, right?
No, he came to
Pleiru, to make it full of it. Pleiru means to make something full. So if your glass is empty, you pour water into it, now it's Pleiru. You've made it full of water. Right? You're not taking away. So if you throw the water out, it's no longer Pleiru. You throw your water out, if the law was there and you throw it away, you no longer have the law. You no longer Pleiru. Pleiru means to make it full. So if you're not full of the law of God, then you don't have what Messiah came to give. Right? It says, I did not come to destroy the law, but to make it full. Alright, 33, 13 to 17.
Joseph, he said, blessed of Jehovah is his name. With the choicest in the heavens, with the dew and the deep lying beneath. With the choice fruit of the sun, with the choice yield of the months. With the finest of the ancient mountains, and the choicest of the everlasting hills. With the choicest of the earth, and all that is it, and the good pleasure of him who dwells in the city. Let it come on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separate from his brothers. His splendor is like a firstborn bull, and his horns are like the horns of a wild ox. With them he pushes the people to the end of the earth, and they are the 10,000 of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
Amen. So, this is the prophecy of Moses, or the blessing of Moses. But first we have the blessing of Jacob, who becomes Israel. Now we have the blessing of Moses. Right? So this is Moses. And this is Israel. For Jacob, right? So Jacob, who is Israel, blesses his son Joseph. Now Moses, before he dies, also blesses Joseph. And if you look at the two blessings, they're pretty similar. What is interesting about Moses' blessing is that he compares Joseph as a bull, as a wild ox, right? And then he says he gores all the people, pushes them to the ends of the earth. That's interesting. because here we're told that they will be scattered to the ends of the earth. So they take with them all the people, all up to the end of the earth. It says, such are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and such are the thousands of Manasseh. Right, so Ephraim and Manasseh, the two sons of Joseph, go out to the ends of the earth with the people. (32, 15 to 19). Now we're going to read verse 26 and verse 39. So one chapter back.
But Yeshurun grew fat and kickled. You grew fat, you grew thick, you were covered with fat. So he forsook Eloah who made him, and scorned the rock of his deliverance. They moved him to jealousy with the foreign, with abominations that provoked him. They slaughtered the demons, not Eloah. Mighty ones they did not know, new ones who came lately, which your fathers did not reverence. You neglected the rock who brought you forth, and forgot the elders fathered you. Jehovah saw and despised because of the provocation of his sons and his daughters.
Verse 26 and verse 39 too.
I said, I should drive them away. I should make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. If I did not fear the enemy's scorn, let their adversaries misunderstand. Lest they say, our hand is high. Jehovah has not done all this. For they are a nation lost to counsel, and there is no understanding in them. If they were wise, they would understand this. They would consider their latter end.
39.
239.
No, 39, verse 39.
See now that I am he, and there is no other king besides me. I put to death and I make alive. I have wounded and I heal, and from my hand no one delivers.
Okay, so here's the scattering as well, and God is talking about what he's talking about here, about Joseph again. He's talking about the northern kingdom Israel, and he says, where is it? 26. He says, I would have said, I will cut them to pieces and blot out their memory out from mankind. So the purpose of scattering them was to make them be forgotten among the nations, right? To blot them out. Let's go carry out this judgment. So that was the original intention, to blot them out, because they went the wrong way. They chose to ignore God. Once they were full and their bellies were fat because of all the goodness that God had given them, they turned around and forgot God and began to worship the Baals, right? False gods made of the images carved with their own hands and so on and so forth. So God sends them out into the nations to become forgotten. So verse 39 here says, see now that that I alone am here, there is no God but me. I bring breath and I give life. I bring death and I give life. I wound and I heal. No one can rescue anyone from my power. So he's the only one that can bring back life or can give death. He's the only one that can heal. So he's just making a statement of who he is. So it's not looking very good at this point for Israel. For the house of Joseph anyway. Isaiah 43. I'm going to need someone to help me read this one. Because it's going to be a long one. Sorry about that. Who would like to read?
But now thus said Jehovah your Creator, O Jacob, and he who formed you, O Israel. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I am with you, and through rivers they do not overflow you. When you walk through fire, you are not scorched, and a flame does not burn you. For I am Jehovah your Elohim, the set apart one of Israel, your Saviour. Gave Mitzrayim for your ransom, Cush and Seba in your place. Since you were precious in my eyes, you have been esteemed, and I have loved you, and have given men in your place, and peoples for your life. Do not fear, for I am with you. I shall bring your seed from the east, and gather you from the west. I shall say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth, and all those who are called by my name, whom I have created, formed, even made for my esteem. He shall bring out a blind people who have eyes, and deaf ones who have ears. And all the nations shall be assembled, and the peoples be gathered. Who among them declares this, and show us former events? Let them give their witnesses to be declared right, or let them hear and say, it is truth. You are my witnesses, declares Jehovah, and my servant whom I have chosen, so that you know and believe me, and understand that I am he. Before me there was no El formed, nor after me there is none. I am Jehovah, and beside me there is no Saviour.
Okay, can I stop you there for a second? So he is again declaring the same thing. I am the only one. Right? But he says, I will gather you from all the places, basically, that I have sent you out. Right? So the promise that keeps coming around is that God will redeem Israel. That's very important to know when we come to the end time prophecies, because who are these people? And where are they? Yep.
I have declared and saved and made known, and there was no foreign mighty one among you. And you are my witnesses, declares Jehovah, that I am El. Even from the day I am he, and no one delivers out of my hand. I work, and he turns it back. Thus said Jehovah, your Redeemer, the set apart one of Israel. For your sake I shall send to Babel, and bring them all down as fugitives, even the Casdim, who rejoice in their ships. I am Jehovah, your set apart one, creator of Israel, your sovereign. Thus says Jehovah, who makes a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters, who brings forth the chariot and the horse, the army and the power. They lie down together, they do not rise. They have been extinguished, they have been quenched like a wick. Do not remember the former events, nor consider the events of old. See, I am doing what is new, let it now spring forth. Do you not know it? I am even making a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The beast of the field esteems me, the jackals and the ostriches, because I have given waters in the wilderness and the rivers in the desert, to give drink to my people, my chosen. This people I have formed for myself, let them relate my praise. But you have not called on me, O Jacob, for you have been weary of me, O Israel. You have not brought me the sheep for your ascending offerings, nor have you esteemed me with your slaughterings. I have not caused you to serve with grain offerings, nor wearied you with incense. You have not brought me sweet cane with silver, nor have you satisfied me with the fat of your slaughterings. You have only burdened me with your sins. You have wearied me with your crookedness. I am he who blots out your transgressions for my own sake, and remember your sins no more. Remind me, let us enter into judgment together. Relate that you might be declared right. Your first father sinned, and your interpreters have transgressed against me. So I have profaned the chief ones of the set-apart place, and have delivered up Jacob to the curse, and Israel to scorn.
Alright, let's stop you there for a second before we go to the next 8 verses. The point that God is making here is that he made a people for himself. Right? And you can say, well, everybody in the world, part of God's people? Well, no. God is telling you here that He's not interested in everyone. Right? He made a people for Himself. These people are called Israel. Sorry if you're not part of it. Right? God has got a people for Himself. He's telling you that. I'm not saying that for myself. I'm saying what He says here, that He made a people for Himself. Right? And that He is protecting these people. Now the question is that we need to ask is, who are they and where are they? And what's the importance of them for us right now? So, yeah, go on.
But now hear, O Jacob my servant, and Israel whom I have chosen. Thus said Jehovah, who made you and formed you from the womb, who helps you. Do not fear, O Jacob my servant, and Yeshurun, whom I have chosen. For I pour water on the thirsty and the floods on the dry ground. I pour my spirit on your seed and my blessing on your offspring. And they shall spring up among the grass like willows by streams of water. One says, I belong to Jehovah, another calls himself by the name of Jacob. Another writes with his hand unto Jehovah and names himself by the name of Israel. Thus said Jehovah, sovereign of Israel and his Redeemer. Jehovah of hosts, I am the first and I am the last. Besides me there is no Elohim. And who is like me? Let him call and declare it and lay it before me, since I appointed the everlasting people and the events that are coming and those that to come. Let them declare these to them. Do not fear nor be afraid. Have I not since made you hear and declare it? Ye are my witnesses. Is there an Eloi besides me? There is no other rock, I know not one. Those who make an idol, all of them are emptiness, and their delights do not profit, and they are their own witnesses. They neither see nor know, so that they are put to shame. I went too far, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Awesome. So here is God talking about Jacob and Jeshurun. Jeshurun is just another word for Israel. Right? So whenever you see Jeshurun, it's talking about Israel. Whom I have chosen. And then he goes on to talk about they will sprout among the grass. Right? When we talk about among the grass, we talk about the barley and the wheat, the grasses, right? The wheat and the tares, right? They will grow among the grass. Near flowing streams. This one will say, I am Jehovah's. Another will use the name of Jacob. Still another will write on his hand, I am Jehovah's. And they will take on the name Israel. What's Jacob's name? Israel. So who do we say we are? Israel. Why is that important?
Because that typifies the bride.
We are joining ourselves to the sons of Jacob. We are becoming Israel. Israel is not necessarily a natural born thing. You don't have to be of the flesh, right? That's what Paul was talking about in Romans chapter 10. Who is a Jew but he who is one from the inside, right? I will make a people of those who are not my people, right? Being grafted in is all about that, becoming part of that nation. Other true blood-related Israelites, yes, but this is not a thing of blood. God was never interested about a nation made of blood. He was interested about a nation made up of faith. When the people of Israel came out of Egypt, they were a mixed multitude. Right? That mixed multitude was called a mixed multitude up until they received the Torah in Mount Sinai. And then you never again hear them being called a mixed multitude again. In fact, Caleb was a Kenizzite. Right? Caleb was not a natural Israelite. And then you have the other people that were joined, Rahab and Ruth and the people that joined in during the time of Esther. Right? At the end of the book of Esther, it tells you that people will become Jews. So grafting in is nothing new. It's always been like that. All right. And here God tells us not to be afraid. Oh, that's a big thing for this day and age. Because everybody's wanting us to be afraid of everything. You look at the news, it's all fear-mongering. You go to the doctors and it's all fear. And everything is based on that. In fact, if we had given in to fear with Shiloh, he wouldn't be here with us, right? So, good points for Daniel and Farika. They did amazing. Hosea, and I'll give you this for homework. Who did last week's homework, by the way? 1, 2, do your homework, guys. It's for your own good. I don't get anything out of it.
Does it count if you've read the entire Bible before?
No. The point is
Not
to
if you want
follow
to be
along with
obedient.
what's going on. So for homework, you're going to read 4 chapters. Sorry. It's important that you know about the prophecies that we're talking about. We're going to read from chapter 14, verse 1 to 7. So 14, 1 to 7.
O Israel, return to Jehovah your Elohim, for you have stumbled by your wickedness. Take words with you and return to Jehovah. Say to him, take away all wickedness except what is good, and we render the bulls of our lips. Ashur does not save us. We do not ride on horses, nor ever again do we say to the work of our hands, our mighty ones, for the fatherless finds compassion in you. I shall heal their backsliding. I shall love them spontaneously. For my displeasure has turned away from him. I shall be like the dew to Israel. He shall blossom like a lily, and cast out his roots like Lebanon. His branches shall spread, and his splendor shall be like an olive tree, and his fragrance like Lebanon. Those who dwell under his shadow shall return. They shall revive like grain and blossom like the vine, and become as fragrant as the wine of Lebanon.
Awesome. No problem, it's not working. Not when you go to Hosea. Okay. Alright, so if you go to that one, what's happening there is, remember God had said he was going to blot them out? Right? So that was the fate of Israel, to be blotted out among the children of Jacob. But here, because Israel or Ephraim repents, God doesn't bring the fullness of his judgment, and it actually says he will forgive the sins of Israel and bring them back. So we see a changing in the heart of God, where he's all of a sudden going to blot them out. Now he's saying, hold on, they're mine, they're still mine, I'm still their God, I'm going to not destroy them, but I will save them. And that's what all those chapters is about. Jeremiah 16, read it all for homework.
Is that just Evan or everybody?
Everybody. So we're going to read from 16 verse 14 to 16 and verses 19 to 21.
see, the days are coming, declares Jehovah, when it is no longer said, Jehovah lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of Mizraim. But Jehovah lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands where he had driven them. For I shall bring them back into the land I gave to their fathers. See, I am sending for many fishermen, declares Jehovah, and they shall fish them. And after that I shall send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill, and out of the holes of the rocks.
All right, so God says now that He's going to bring them back. All right, so the prophecy is that He will bring them back. I remember that in the first blessings we were told, and in Deuteronomy we were told that they were going to be scattered. Right? And then we are told now that God is bringing them back to the land. He's going to bring them back from wherever they had been scattered, from the north lands where God has driven them, and from all the lands where He had driven them out to.
That's where Yeshua said, I will make you fishers of men.
I will make you fishers of men. Yep. So that's what it's relating to. So there's two ways you're going to get back to God. One, He's going to send fishermen of men, basically people that will give you the good news, and you can make up your own mind. That's one way you're going to come in. You're going to make up your mind when you see the message being taught to you. This is what, we talk about the courts of love, right? That God sends out, come now that you can, be with me and all this sort of stuff. The romancing, God is actually calling out a bride, right? So you can become part of the bride on your own free will, not a problem. The second way that He's going to send out for you to come in is that He will send out hunters. And that's what you don't want to be part of. This is when Messiah returns and everything turns upside down, and you're either going to fold into the ways of the world, or you're going to fold into the Messianic faith, and that's going to be it. There's not going to be many choices for you left. You're going to be hunted down by the enemy. Okay, so I suggest you come in on the first one, right? Because it'll be a lot easier. The second one's not very nice. 19 to 21.
O Jehovah, my strength and my stronghold, and my refuge in the day of distress, the Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth, and say, our fathers have inherited only falsehood, futility, and there is no value in them. Would a man make mighty ones for himself which are not mighty ones? Therefore see, I can cause them to know this time. I cause them to know my hand and my mind, and they shall know that my name is Jehovah.
Amen. So this is talking about now the nations. Right? And again, He calls out to Israel out in the nations, right? And it says that the Gentiles themselves will come back. Right? The grafted in, the Gentiles, the ones that had no covenant. The word Gentile is associated with those who don't have a covenant. So they enter in the covenant and they start crying out to God from the ends of the earth. Our fathers have inherited us lies, vanity, and things that profit nothing, or they have no value. Right? And then they say, shall a man make gods, mighty ones unto himself, when they are not gods? We're talking about the idolatry that was given to us throughout our last 2,000 years by the Catholic Church, that has passed down into the Christian Church, and every flavor of the whore of Babylon that has come from that. monster,
From a different
from a different source.
Yeah.
And we come out of that because the Father says, "Come out of her, my people, be separate. Touch not that which is unclean, and I will receive you to myself." This is what's happening. So he has prophesied that these things will happen, that people from the nations will come from the ends of the earth to say, "You know, our fathers have inherited us lies." He says that he will cause them to know his might, his hand, and his name. In other words, he will take them for himself. He will become their God.
It is interesting to read that, because when this was written to compare to today, if we have a look at say a year ago, to the number of Messianics around the world, that they are happening to be coming into Torah, to where we are now, this is fulfillment of scripture right there.
Absolutely.
Right now. It's happening.
It's growing in momentum, it's getting bigger, and it's not going to stop till Messiah returns. Because it has to be fulfilled as part of the promise of blessing that was given to them from Jacob onwards to us anyway. Alright, so we're going to read 31. It's not that long, guys. You like to read? Sorry.
At that time, declares Yahuwah, I shall be the Elohim of all the clans of Israel, and they shall be my people. Thus said Yahuwah, a people escaped from the sword, found favor in the wilderness. Israel, when it went to find rest, Yahuwah appeared to me from afar, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I shall draw you with loving commitment. I am going to build you again, and you shall be rebuilt, O maiden of Israel. Again you shall take up your tambourines and go forth in the dances of those who rejoice. Again you shall plant vines on the mountains of Shomeron. The planters shall plant and treat them as common. For there shall be a day when the watchmen cry out on Mount Ephraim, Arise, and let us go up to Zion, to Yahuwah our Elohim. For thus said Yahuwah, Sing with gladness for Yaakov, and shout among the chief of the nations. Cry out, give praise, and say, O Yahuwah, save your people, the remnant of Israel. See, I am bringing them from the land of the north, and shall gather them from the ends of the earth. Among them the blind and the lame, those with child and those in labour, together, a great assembly returning here. With weeping they shall come, and with their prayers I shall bring them. I shall make them walk by the rivers of water, in a straight way in which they do not stumble. For I shall be a father to Israel and Ephraim. He is my firstborn. Hear the word of Yahuwah, O nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He who scattered Israel gathers him, and shall guard him as a shepherd his flock.
Let me stop you there for a second. So here God again promises to bring back Israel from the corners of the earth where he has scattered them. They shall come with weeping and supplications. They will go by the rivers of water in straight ways. By the previous verses that we read, it actually talks about bodies of water and there being straight avenues through them. Right? What does that remind you of? The Exodus. The first Exodus, right? Through the Red Sea, or the Sea of Reeds. right? This will happen again. There's another verse that talks about the second Exodus when, you know, he gathers his people and takes them back through the waters. And that's why it says through the waters or through the fire, right? It's the second Exodus that will happen. No rapture, guys. The rapture doesn't exist. It says that they shall come back to the land and plant vineyards in Samaria again, Shomron, Samaria, northern Israel.
So the Samaritans come from.
Yeah. Ephraim is my firstborn. Did you pick that up?
Yeah.
Verse 9? Yep. Alright, continue, brother.
For Yahuwah shall ransom Jacob, and redeem him from the hand of one stronger than he. And they shall come in, and shall sing on the height of Zion, and stream to the goodness of Yahuwah, for grain, and for new wine, and for oil, and for the young of the flock and the herd. And their being shall be like a well-watered garden, and never languish again. Then shall a maiden rejoice in a dance, and young men and old together. And I shall turn their mourning to joy, and shall comfort them, and shall make them rejoice from their sorrow, and shall fill the being of the priests with fatness. And my people shall be satisfied with my goodness, declares Yahuwah. Thus said Yahuwah, a voice was heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping, Rahel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children, because they are no more. Thus said Yahuwah, hold back your voice from weeping, and your eyes from tears. For there is a reward for your work, declares Yahuwah, and they shall return from the land of the enemy. And there is expectancy for your latter end, declares Yahuwah, and your children shall return to their own country. I have clearly heard Ephraim lamenting. You have chastised me, and I was chastised, like an untrained calf. Turn me back, and I shall turn back, for you are Yahuwah my Elohim. For after my turning back, I repented, and after I was instructed, I struck myself on the thigh. I was ashamed, even humiliated, for I bore the reproach of my youth. Is Ephraim a precious son to me, a child of delights? For though I spoke against him, I still remembered him. That is why my affections were deeply moved for him. I have great compassion for him, declares Yahuwah. Set up signposts, make landmarks, set your heart toward the highway, the way in which you went. Turn back, O maiden of Israel, turn back to those cities of yours. Till when would you turn here and there, O backsliding daughter? For Yahuwah has created what is new on earth. A woman encompasses a man. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel. Let them once again say this word in the land of Yahudah and in its cities. When I turn back their captivity, Yahuwah bless you, O home of righteousness, mountain of set apartness. And in Yahudah and all its cities, farmers and those who journey with flocks shall dwell together. For I shall fill the weary being, and I shall replenish every grieved being. At this I woke and looked around, and my sleep was sweet on me. I sweat on me. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that I shall sow the house of Israel and the house of Yahudah with the seed of man, and the seed of beast. And it shall be that I have watched over them to pluck them, and to break down, and to throw down, and to destroy, and to afflict. So I shall watch over them to build and to plant, declares Yahuwah. In those days they shall no longer say, the fathers ate sour grapes, and the children's teeth are blunted. But each one shall die for his own crookedness. Whoever eats sour grapes, his teeth shall be blunted. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah, not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahuwah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach, each one his neighbour, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuwah. For I shall forgive their crookedness, and remember their sin no more. Thus said Yahuwah, who gives the sun for a light by day, and the laws of the moon and the stars for a light by night, who stirs up the sea, and its waves roar. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. If these laws vanish from before me, declares Yahuwah, then the seed of Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus said Yahuwah, if the heavens above could be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out for me, I would also cast off the seed of Israel for all that they have done, declares Yahuwah. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that the city shall be built for Yahuwah from the tower of Hanael to the corner gate, and the measuring line shall again extend straight ahead to the hill of Gareb, then it shall turn towards Goah, and all the valley of the dead bodies and of the ashes, and all the fields as far as the Wadi Quidron, to the corner of the horse gate towards the east, is to be set apart to Yahuwah. It shall not be plucked up or thrown down any more forever.
Amen. Wow. Long reading,
Yeah.
but I think it's important that we understand the whole prophecy from beginning to end, what it's talking about. And there's a lot there, but we'll go back to just quickly where it talks about Rachel. She cries out for her children who are no more. Who are the children of Rachel?
Ephraim.
Ephraim and Esau? No. Asenath was the mother of Ephraim and Manasseh. So who's the children of Rachel? Go back a little bit more.
Benjamin.
Yeah? Joseph and Benjamin. Right? So, like I said, right? When we're dealing with one, we're dealing with the other. They're interchangeable. So, why would she say her children are no more? Why would she cry bitterly and say her children are no more?
Because they were scattered off.
Because they were scattered, because God blotted them out, right? And she thinks that the children have disappeared, right? She thinks her children are no more. Now they've been blotted out, they were taken out into the nations, they've forgotten who they were. They're done with, forgotten, right? But then God comforts her and says, no, hold on. Verse, verse 18, is it?
17, isn't it?
there is hope for your end, says Yehovah, and your children shall come again to their own border. Right? There's another place which I can never remember where the children return and they speak in Herea. Anyway, I'll find it eventually. Or you guys can help me maybe if you got it.
So speaking what?
Your children shall say again in your ear, this place is too small for me. Right? So the children of Rachel return, and she's actually perplexed, and she says to God, who are these and who has born them to me? Right? Because she thinks her children are gone, but all of a sudden they come out. It says they come out from the nations, and they fill her house, and she's perplexed. She goes, who are these and who has born them to me? Right? And God says to her, your children shall again say in your ear, this place is too small for me. Right? So they're going to fill up the land of Israel again. So God's talking to Rachel in that other prophecy as well, which I couldn't find, but I know it's there. Anyway, if you find it, let me know. I always forget it. I write it sometimes, but I forget it. Maybe I got it in the back. No. All right. So Ephraim will come back. It says there, I heard clearly Ephraim bemoaning himself. You have chastised me, and I was chastised, and so on and so forth. He talks about, and then he says, surely after I was repented, after I was instructed, after I learned the Torah, after I realized what I had done, I smote my thigh, I hit my thigh. What do you think, Ephraim, what is that about? That's a Jewish idiom, that's a Hebrew idiom. I struck my thigh. Why the thigh? What is that about?
To do with your walk, your straight walk.
It was a blessing when they put in the hand in
More
the...
specifically. Yeah, it's got to do with the blessing, yeah.
Oh, when they have a baby, isn't it?
Jacob put the hand of his servant on his thigh and said, swear that you will find a woman for my son, right, Isaac?
Yeah, but that's got to do with relationship.
Yeah, but there's a point about the thigh. What's the thigh about? It's in the scriptures. It actually tells you what the thigh is about.
Covenant.
The covenant? Yeah. Which covenant?
Marriage.
No.
I promise.
Could it be because that's like one of the major arteries?
Nope. Good guess there.
Right?
Good guess, because we got major arteries there. No, it's not about that.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing for the children.
All right. Let's go there.
When a concubine has a baby for its
Master?
of a master, she sits on her thighs to birth it.
Yeah, why on the thigh? We gotta understand. What is the significance of the thigh?
I never knew that was so important.
Yeah. We're gonna find out. Can we read Genesis 32?
When
24?
Yaakov was striving with...
Let's read it.
Before you go there, can we have a look at 49:20? That's what
Yep.
you were talking about. About the children. 49:20. It says, and the sons of your bereavement shall yet say in our ears, the place is too narrow for me, make room for me to live.
Where's that? Chapter 49?
That's Isaiah 49:20.
Isaiah 49:20, that's the one. Alright, so I'll put it, yeah. Isaiah 49:20. So in that same chapter it talks about, that's Rachel. Anyway.
Yep.
Isaiah 49:20. Rachel.
Isaiah.
Isaiah 49:20.
Yeah, Isaiah.
Thank you, Rob.
No worries.
Yeah, so verse 12 talks about, behold, he shall come from far, and lo, this from the north, and from the west, and from the lands of Shinim, and he goes on, a people forsaken. Anyway. So that's the whole passage. If you read it all, I think it's.
So what's up with the fight?
Let's go back to the fight.
When Yaakov was striving with Elohim,
Yeah, very good.
he got blessed.
Let's read that one. Can we read it? You got it?
Which one?
Loud and clear. Genesis 32. Genesis 32.
24. And Yaakov was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he did not overcome him, he touched the socket of his hip. And the socket of Yaakov's hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaks. But he said, I am not letting you go until you have blessed me. So he asked him, what is your name? And he said, Yaakov. And he said, your name is no longer called Yaakov, but Israel, because you have striven with Elohim and with men, and have overcome. And Yaakov asked him, saying, please let me know your name. And he said, why do you ask about my name? And he blessed him there. And Yaakov called the name of the place Peniel, where I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. And the sun rose on him as he passed over Peniel, and he limped on his hip. That is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat of the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of the thigh of Yaakov in the sinew of the hip.
Awesome. You get it? It's the blessing of Jacob. Right? So the thigh is a symbol of the covenant that God made with Jacob. Right? It is because of that wrestling when God touched the socket of his thigh, right, and dislocated or broke it or cut the sinew of it, that was the sign that he had fought with God and prevailed. So when Ephraim is striking his thigh, when they make covenants, putting their hand on the thigh, what they are remembering is the covenant that God made with Jacob. Is the covenant that they are, they are remembering the covenant. That's why they struck their thighs, How could you be so stupid? Don't you remember the covenant that God made with Jacob? That's why it says they were ashamed. When they realized, when they were instructed, when they woke up to themselves and saw the covenant that God had made with his people, and they struck their thigh because they realized, I have been so wrong all this time, I've forgotten the covenant. So the thigh is very important when we're dealing with scriptures, because it reminds us of the covenant with Jacob. Right, Ezekiel 37. We're going to just go through a little bit. You can read it all together afterwards. Ezekiel 37, we've talked about it a lot of times.
Valley of the dry bones.
The valley of the dry bones, the two sticks, right? Yeah. It's all found in Ezekiel 37. Right, so here's Ezekiel being taken to the valley of the dry bones, and God asking him, Son of man, can these bones live? And he answers, God, you know. And then he says, prophesy to these bones and say unto them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. And so God causes breath to come on them, and they become living souls again. And then God says, who are these? Right? What does God answer? Remember? No? Okay. So I think it's the whole house of Israel was verse 11. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Some of them. A few of them. All of them. Right? These bones are the whole house of Israel. It says they stood up on their feet, and they were an exceedingly great army. And they said unto me, Son of man, these are the whole house of Israel, the bones of the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our hearts. Therefore prophesy unto them and say, the Lord, behold all my people. Right, these are the people that God said, you are no longer my people. Here is calling them, you are my people again. And brought you up out of the graves. Remember the first blessing? Right? It talks about that he will be blessed from Sheol, that he will be blessed from the grave. Right? He's telling the blessing of the grave. He's talking about the resurrection of Israel, the resurrection of the dead. Now, by the way, has any of this stuff actually happened?
No.
Well, there are some that argue that it did happen.
We're in the process.
Huh?
We're in the process.
They say that it did happen when Messiah rose and the people rose with him, that was it. Some say that it finished when Israel came back to the land, 1948, 1967. So there's all these conjectures as to when did this happen. Well, let's look at the next prophecy right after that, where it talks about the two sticks, right? Mm-hmm. And the two sticks of Ephraim and Joseph, right? The stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the stick of Judah, right? They come together in the hand of God, in the hand of Messiah. Now, is Messiah on earth yet?
Nope.
So why do we assume that it has been fulfilled? Mm-hmm. If Messiah is not on earth, then the two kingdoms or the two houses can't be together. Right? Which means that the northern kingdom, which is Israel, right, and the southern kingdom were separated at one point. Right? Where did the southern kingdom go to?
The southern went to Samaria.
Kingdom. No, where was the southern kingdom driven out? Because they also sinned, and they were sent down to Babylon. Did they come back?
Yep, they did.
So they came back, right? You got Nehemiah, you got Ezra, right? Even Book of Esther.
That's Jehudah.
And that's Judah, yeah.
Yep.
After 70 years.
Very good, after 70 years, right? 70 years in the time of Daniel. So after that, Cyrus gives the decree for the rebuilding of Jerusalem, sends them back home. Judah returns to the land. Where's Israel? Israel was sent to Assyria, right? Or the Persians.
Scattered.
Yeah. So they were scattered into Persia and from there to the ends of the world. Did they return?
No.
They're still missing. Right? And Messiah hasn't returned. So these prophecies can be fulfilled. For two reasons. Israel is not back in the land. One. The second reason is Messiah is not here. So where are they? Where God said he would gather them from the four corners of the earth. I mean, it doesn't get any more simple than that. You know, how do people complicate it? One house and all that sort of stuff. I mean, make it easy, guys. It is what it says. 19 to 23. Please. Say to them, thus says Jehovah, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his fellows are those who graft in, right? The people that graft into the tribes. And will put them with him, even the stick of Judah, and make them one stick. They shall be one in mine hand, says Jehovah, right? And the stick there on you shall write shall be in the hand before their eyes, and say to them, thus says the Lord. I got the wrong version. God, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, or the nations, or the Gentiles, where they had gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. So again, has this been fulfilled? No. So the point of this is that it all began with one man, right? One man, Jacob. He had a life where he drew close to God, and he became the only person that God called his friend. And he moves on from his life and leaves a blessing for his son, Joseph. And then Joseph is sent out into the nations as the northern kingdom of Israel. He didn't reveal his name to Jacob, by the way. Did you notice that when he was wrestling with God? He revealed it afterwards when Moses came into the picture, right? He says, this is how you should say to the children of Israel. Right, so God did answer the prayer or the request, but not to him directly, but to his descendants.
But it's sort of fit because he said, I'm going to call this place Peniel. So it's
Yeah.
because I've seen God face to face.
Yeah.
So
God means the mighty one. It doesn't declare his name. His name was revealed to Moses just when God chooses to marry Israel. Right? When the betrothal finishes and God takes Israel for himself, he reveals his name to it. So it all began with one man's blessing. He was set apart by Jehovah, not of his own doing, just Jehovah chose him, and he was blessed. That his seed also received that blessing. And although in time they walked away from Jehovah, and so they were scattered, the nation of Israel was divided, northern and southern kingdoms, house of Joseph, house of Judah, taken by Babylon and Assyria, and so on and so forth. And so Messiah comes, prophet unto Moses, to fulfill the prophecy, to bring the prophecy into alignment with God's will, because God promised to redeem Israel, to bring him back to the land. So here's Messiah doing the thing that he needs to do to redeem Israel, dies on the cross, basically freeing the bride to be remarried. And so here we are. Yeshua states in Matthew 15:24, I did not come except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So if you're not of the house of Israel, Messiah didn't come for you. End of story. He didn't come for the whole world, he came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He tells you that himself. So where do we get that he wants to redeem the whole world? We get it from, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Now God can love the whole world because that's where Israel is, right? He loves the whole world. He wants to redeem everyone, but the only way to the redemption is through Messiah himself, right? And through Messiah we graft into Israel, we become part of Israel. So the only way to come back is to become part of the house of Israel. Right? This is what Messiah came to do, to bring back the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So you gotta get in his program. You can't tell him what the program is. you got to get into his program. And his program is redemption of the house of Israel. You become part of that, you're in. Okay? So it's not the other way around. I'll tell God what to do and he's going to do it for me. It doesn't work that way. The return of the northern kingdom marks the final chapters of the return of Messiah. This is the great thing that we've been praying, the awakening. Father, send us revival. Right? Well, this is it, guys. This is the final revival. You either jump in or you stay out. There's no middle ground. This is the revival that we've been praying for years and years and years. Right? It just doesn't happen the way you want it to happen. Because we had all these ideas of how it would be, bringing the masses in. God doesn't do it that way. God does things the way that you don't expect it. This was the same thing when Messiah came. They couldn't recognize him because he didn't come the way that they expected him to come. Well, you expect the revival to be this amazing thing that gathers millions and millions of people from all over the world. God's plan is that none should be lost, but in his plan, he is bringing a people back to the land. That people is called Israel. He wants you to be part of it. But if you don't recognize it, you won't be part of it. And it's only a remnant that will actually awaken and realize what's going on. And yes, we are growing in numbers, but it will never be a mass conversion thing. It's not like the whole world will turn to God. It's not going to happen. Sadly. Because people have their own ideas of what should happen and what they want God to do for them. It doesn't work that way. The awakening or the revival that we see growing today is exactly this. Prophecies being fulfilled. What was prophesied in the blessings of Jacob and Moses, the fulfillment of all of what was written in the scriptures up until the return of Israel to the land and Messiah bringing the two houses together, making them one kingdom. There is power in blessing. What do you guys think?
Yep.
Started with Jacob's words, and even before that, with the promise to Abraham. Right? And you can trace it back to Noah and Shem. You can trace it back to Adam. So every one of these men who spoke blessing to their generations, God has honored that. But it has to be done his way, right? Not our way. It has to be done his way. These men fell in his will. They did what God asked them to do. Right? And that's why God blessed their seed. That's why we're here today. Because they walked with God, not walked and told God what to do. Very important. He's God, we're not. Okay, let's pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, I pray that you would bless the word today according to whatever fruit you want to bring out of it. Abba, may there have been nothing of me in this, and that every word spoken would have been yours. Abba, I commit all that we've heard today. Help us to be doers of the word, not just forgetful hearers. Help us to change. Help us to become better men and women according to your perfect will. More importantly, Father, reveal yourself to us more and more so that we can have the assurance and walk in your way according to your will. Abba, we commit ourselves into your hands. In the name of Yeshua, our Messiah and King. Amen. All right. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.